I was 30 years old and living with my brother in a 2-story house with a mother and her children. My brother was downstairs and I was upstairs. My brother usually stayed with his boyfriend, so most nights I was on my own. As you can imagine, yes, my brother is gay. One night I was home alone, settled in to watch a horror movie. The house was quiet, just me and the TV flickering in a dark room. I was 30 years old, of course, but still, sometimes being alone made me uncomfortable. I tried to allay my fears by telling myself that I was an adult and shouldn't be afraid of the slightest thing. Nevertheless, throughout the movie, I kept looking over my shoulder. I'm not sure why, but it felt like there was another presence in the room. After the movie, I did my evening routine and went to bed. It was pitch black, and after a few attempts, I soon fell asleep. I don't know how long I slept, but after about 2 hours, something woke me up. At first, I didn't know why, and then I heard voices coming from downstairs. It sounded eerily like my brother, which was really strange because my brother wasn't supposed to be home. Confused and a little worried, I lay in bed for a while, trying to make sense of it. The voice was faint but clear, and it was clearly my brother's inside the quiet house. With a mixture of dizziness and confusion, I lifted myself out of bed and stood for a while in the dark living room. The house was quiet, and I could only hear what sounded like my brother's voice from a distance, muffled. It was a strange sound, as if he was near or far away. In the darkness, I cautiously made my way to the kitchen, arms outstretched, using the familiar walls and furniture as clues. Finally, my finger touched the light switch. With a hesitant movement, the kitchen was suddenly bathed in light. But there was no one there, no sign of my brother or anyone else. The room was exactly as it had been when I left, and there was no sign that anyone had been there. I stood there, bewildered and terrified, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. The voices were so clear, so real, but the emptiness of the kitchen contradicted what my ears were telling me. Terrified, unable to trust my senses, I called out to the voice, "Is that you?" My voice echoed faintly in the silence, but there was no response. In the distance, as if answering my call, I heard the voice again. It was a soft murmur, barely audible, but it sounded like my brother's voice. "He's probably in the bedroom." The uncertainty of the situation gave me goosebumps. I stood there for a moment, contemplating my next move. A distant familiar voice echoed in my head. I checked the bedroom. No one was there. I called his name out loud again, but no one answered. Just after I shouted, I heard something fall on the bedroom floor. Feeling like a frightened child, I ran up the stairs and locked myself in my room. I tried to call my brother, but there was no answer. As I lay there, I wondered if I was hallucinating. I don't know why I didn't call the police. Looking back, I should have done it immediately. I lay on the bed. My mind was a mixture of fear and confusion. I lay in bed, my mind a mixture of fear and confusion, waiting for something to happen. But the house remained silent. The eerie silence was uncomfortable, but somehow I eventually fell asleep, despite the anxiety and unanswered questions swirling in my head. In the morning, I woke up to a text from my sister. I asked her if she was home, and she said she was at her boyfriend's house. I went downstairs to the bedroom to check the noise from the night before and found nothing untoward. Everything was as it should be, and I could not find anything that could have caused the noise. My bewilderment continued, and I suspected that I had imagined the whole event. The clarity of my brother's voice and the noises in his room continued to disturb me, but I wanted to believe that it was all in my mind. When I got home, I was very tired, and I just wanted to relax and forget about the day. But every night, something strange happens. I can clearly hear footsteps in the empty house. These are not the creaking sounds of an old house. They are distinct footsteps, as if someone is walking. At first, I thought they were tired from the stress of work, but it continued night after night. I was sitting on the couch watching TV, and I heard footsteps as if someone was walking back and forth in another room. That's what scared me. I live alone in a normal suburban neighborhood, and the thought of someone sneaking around in my house would freak anyone out. After weeks of sleepless nights, I decided to do something about it. I researched online and bought some security cameras. I set them up around the house and thought I would catch whoever was doing this weird trick. But then things got even stranger. The first few nights after I installed the cameras, everything seemed normal. There were no mysterious footsteps, and it was quiet as usual. I started to think that maybe I was paranoid. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But one night, as I was sitting on the couch, the footsteps started again. This time the camera was recording. I picked up my phone, opened the camera app, and started watching the live footage. The footsteps were approaching me as if from outside the room. I looked at the screen with my heart pounding, trying to catch a glimpse of the person invading my space. Then I heard a sound that sent chills down my spine, a sound that told me someone was running towards me. I jumped up with my heart pounding and looked around the room, but no one was there. Thinking it might be a prank, I ran to the front door. But the street was empty, just the silence of a suburban night. I stood there with my cell phone in my hand, wondering what had happened. I rewound the image and made sure I heard footsteps. It was as if an invisible man was running through the house, and I felt like I had stepped into the Twilight Zone. I told myself it could be a camera malfunction and tried to brush it off. But the footsteps kept coming, and I kept recording them. It seemed like someone was playing with me, but I don't know who or why. The next few days were a whirlwind of paranoia and confusion. I began to avoid certain rooms, fearing that I would hear footsteps again. I even invited friends over and hoped that being with them would calm my nerves. But as the night progressed, the footsteps returned like unwanted visitors. I shared the video with my friends, hoping they would see something I had missed. As we watched the footage together, our faces tensed, and we tried to make sense of the strange events. But it was always the same, unexplained footsteps. I was at the point of questioning my sanity. I checked and rechecked the CCTV footage, but there was no explanation. It was like I was living in a nightmare where the rules didn't apply. I have to share a funny thing that happened to me about a year ago. My parents went to a Bible conference and I was left home alone. My name is James. I am a 17-year-old shy boy. I don't like to socialize and I don't have many friends. I guess that's why my parents weren't worried about leaving me home alone. The only person I talk to is my next-door neighbor, an old man named Arthur. He owns the house and I mow the lawn for his saxophone lessons. It's a strange friendship, but it works. Now, on this particular night, I have my usual late-night saxophone practice. My parents aren't home. It's quiet outside and the sound is probably insanely loud. But you know, music is my only escape. Then, all of a sudden, there's this eerie atmosphere. It's insanely dark. And suddenly I notice the motion sensor lights outside going on and off like crazy. At first I thought it was raccoons or something. But when I looked through the window, blinds, I saw an old man crouching in the bushes. What the hell was that? My heart was doing. Was that Arthur? I couldn't see his face, only his silhouette. Why is he hiding in my bushes in the middle of the night? I'm not a nosy guy, but this is fucked up. This guy's trying to hide. What's he up to? The whole night was like something out of a horror movie. The lights kept flashing and dancing, and I couldn't shake the feeling of terror. I tried to call the police, but do you think I'm overreacting? It could just be a stupid joke. I was torn between fearing for my safety and being a paranoid person crying wolf. All night I was going crazy. Every time I looked outside, the old man was still there, lurking in the shadows. The noises from outside made it worse. Branches breaking, leaves rustling. I don't know if it was because my senses were particularly heightened. Was he trying to sneak into my house? When I checked again just before dawn, the shadowy figures had disappeared, but the garden had been destroyed. But the garden had been razed. And here's the kicker. Arthur dropped this bombshell at his next saxophone lesson. He talked about his late wife's favorite flower. This delicate flower had been accidentally cut down while I was tending the garden. The dots connected, and I began to think that Arthur was hiding in my bushes because I had destroyed his late wife's flowers. Could this have been revenge for my accidental garden massacre? Or was it my imagination? I don't even know if it's Arthur. If it is Arthur, I'm scared, because I don't know if he wants to hurt me. The saxophone lesson became awkward, and I tried to act nonchalant every time the motion sensor light came on. What fear have I unleashed by accidentally destroying Arthur's precious memories? There you have it, folks. My weekend of dread, saxophone lessons turned into dread, all because of a flower I didn't even know was important. Is Arthur out for revenge, or is this just my terrible imagination playing tricks on me? I don't understand.